The White House has warned that arms negotiations between the two countries are actively advancing. Let's bring in our military analyst, Sean Bell. What's the latest on this situation? What more do you know?
Yeah, good afternoon, Jonathan. I mean, all of this is speculation at the moment. We must add it right at the start. But Kim Jong-un and President Putin meeting. Speculation it might be at Vladivostok. Why there? Well, it is the location of a previous meeting, and it's about as close as you can get to North Korea because they share a border with Russia up there. The aim, ostensibly, is to talk about weapons. Russia is desperately keen. It's been talking to Iran about drones, and apparently it wants to talk to North Korea about particularly rockets and artillery shells. Ben Wallace, our former Defence Secretary, said that, Putin has been reduced to pleading with North Korea for weapons. And, of course, a lot of the weapons are 1960s vintage, so whether they'll be any use or not. What's most interesting to me is normally these meetings are shrouded in secrecy. So the very fact that actually we're hearing about them almost certainly is that because Kim Jong-un is paranoid about his personal safety, doesn't want to travel unless it's top secret, by releasing this information, almost certainly it's a US effort to disrupt this meeting ever happening. Yeah, this is when they met a few years ago. I mean, if it does go ahead and if some sort of deal is done, what could be the potential outcome? Part of this is it's a clear demonstration, not just Ukraine. We're constantly talking about Ukraine and weapons. It's not just Ukraine and its weapons, it's Russia as well. And despite North Korea's assurances that they've not been providing weapons to Russia to date, there's increasing evidence that they were providing infantry rockets and missiles across to the Wagner Group, if you remember. And part of the Western sanctions, whilst many cynics would say they're not having much effect, in reality, Putin's got very few places he can turn now to try and get weapons. But what's most interesting for me is what does North Korea want out of this? It's clear what Russia wants. What does North Korea want? It's trying to invest. It struggles to get hold of any technology. It's got a fledgling satellite ambition to get stuff into space. But actually, bluntly, it's almost certainly food, aid and currency. That's what they want. The other thing they want, though, is that North Korea is increasingly intimidated by, if you remember, America and South Korea do joint exercises. Almost certainly, Kim Jong-un will be asking whether or not Russia and or China can be involved in joint exercises with North Korea. That's not likely, is it? Could that be a possibility? Well, who knows, given how desperate is President Putin for getting his weapons. Right. He has the authority to be able to do that. But we do understand they've at least signed, exchanged letters, and they're looking to do increased bilateral cooperation. But there's some worrying potential, isn't there, of how this could lead. Yeah, there really is. And we've seen footage today of a Challenger 2 tank, or what we believe could be a Challenger 2 tank that's been destroyed. Talk us through that. Yeah, the video was released yesterday. It purports to show a Challenger 2 tank. We've had a good close look at it. It's quite difficult to tell exactly, but it appears to be around the Robotyne front line, which is just the east of Zaporizhzhia, which is the main front line where we'd expect. If you remember, UK delivered 14 of these tanks to Ukraine earlier on in the year. Now, actually, they're very difficult to destroy. They're not difficult to disable. You knock the tracks off them. If it was a Russian tank, they generally lose the whole lid off the tank because of the way that everything's stored around there. The first point I'd make is no tank is indestructible. The Ukrainians claim they've lost 6 of our Western main battle tanks out of 105 that have been delivered so far, which is not a bad rate. It's also worth pointing out the Russian soldiers have been given a bonus for taking out Western main battle tanks as an incentive to do it. But for me, the context of all this is fascinating. Russia has lost over 2,000 main battle tanks since the start of this war. Yet the very fact they're making a big thing out of one Challenger 2 tank just demonstrates the huge gulf in capability between Russia's tanks and Western main battle tanks. Yeah, fascinating. Sean, as always, thank you very much.